In this video, I'll be showing you how to make a new flower charm using the rainbow loom. I would say that the flower looks most like a pansy or possibly a petunia. So we're going to be working with one loom, and you want your pins set up in a staggered position so they are not in line with one another, and you want the arrows to be facing away from you. And for your colors, you will need 16 green rubber bands for the stem and the leaves. You will need 6 yellow rubber bands for the center. You will need a total of 36 bands for the petals. So I've chosen a darker purple and then a lighter purplish pink color. So I have 18 of each of those rubber bands for the total of 36. I'm going to begin by placing the stem of the flower on the loom. So I'll be starting with green. And for each band that I place on, I am going to double it. So in order to do that, I place it on my hook, twist, and put it back on so you can see the 2 bands. And in that center row, I'm going to go to the 3rd pin up. And this is going to stretch from that 3rd pin up to the 4th pin. And I want to place the length of 8 rubber bands on the loom. So they're always going to be doubled, and they're going to just go one right after the other. And as I'm placing these on the loom, I want to push them down to the bottom of the pin. Some people like to use their fingers to double the bands, but I prefer to use my hook when I'm stretching them out in between the pins. So whatever method you find that works best for you, you can certainly use. So now I've gone the length of 8 rubber bands, and I want to place a cap band on this very last pin. So in order to do that, I'm going to place it on my hook, twist and put it back on, twist, put it back on, twist and put it back on so that it is quadrupled. And I'm going to place it right on the top of this pin. It's going to be tight. If you find that your bands aren't very stretchy and you're having a hard time to do that, you can just triple that band. And now I am going to go back to the start. And next I want to place the yellow rubber bands on. They're going to go around the circle at the end of the loom here. So I will be starting on that 3rd pin up where we started the stem. I'm doubling the band. And I am going to go around in a clockwise direction. So I'm just going to do one right after the other around this circle. And I want to keep pushing those down to the bottom of the pin as well, because I will need to add the petals on top of these pins. And here's my last one. And now I'm going to start with the petals. So I'm going to start with this darkest purple, and I'm going to go in the center again. It's that 3rd pin up from the end. I am doubling the band, and I'm going to place the length of 5 rubber bands going up the loom. So I did 1 darker purple. Now I'm going to do 3 lighter purples. And I'm just going to push these down a little bit just so I have room to add that next rubber band. I don't want to push them down too far against the green because it'll make it harder to loop that top layer when it comes time for that. So I did one dark purple and then 3 lighter purples, and now I'm going to do another dark purple. So that's a total of 5 rubber bands. And now on this end pin here where I just left off, I want to place a cap band. And normally when I place a cap band, I quadruple it. But if I do that, it's going to get too many rubber bands on each pin at the flower part. So I'm only going to double this band. And I'm going to place it right on the top here. And now I am going to loop these bands. So I'm going to turn this around. I'm just going to do this one petal. So I am going to put my hook down through the middle here, push back on those top 2 bands. That's the cap band that we just placed on. I'm grabbing those next 2 purple bands. I'm not doing anything with the green. That's the stem. I'm going to hold this cap band in place with my thumb. And now I'm just going to work my way up here, just grabbing the top 2 bands. And now what I want to do is place my thumb over top of this pin, and I want to remove the bands that I just looped. And I am just going to leave this just like it is for the moment. I'm going to let it hang here off to the side. And now I am going to turn my loom around again so I can do the next petal. And so now I'm going to go to this next pin over in a clockwise direction. And I'm going to repeat that same pattern, starting with the dark purple. And now I want to do 3 of the lighter purples. And now I'm going to do 1 dark purple. And now I want to place a cap band. Again, I am just going to double it and place it right on the top. And now I am going to turn my loom around so I can loop the bands that I just placed on. So again, I'm going through this end pin, pushing back on the cap band. I want to hold that in place. And I'm just going to work my way up. And now I want to take these rubber bands off, but I'm going to leave it here where my thumb is. So I'm going to place my thumb over this pin, and then I'm going to take off these other rubber bands. And I'm just going to pull this out to the left. And now the first one that we looped, I want to place the end of this cap band. I'm going to place it on this next pin over. Just going to let it sit right on the top. And we're going to keep doing that. We're going to leave the one that we just looped hang until we get the next one looped. So now again I have to turn the loom around so the arrows are facing away from me. And now I'm going to start on the pin on the right hand side that's closest to me on the end. And I'm going to do the same thing. Now you're going to have to push the bands on this pin, that second pin up. You're going to have to push them down pretty far so you have room to work. So again, I'll start with this dark purple. And now I'm going to do 3 of the lighter purple. And now a dark purple. And then a cap band that is doubled. And now I'll turn my loom around so the arrows are once again facing me, and I'm going to loop this row. So I'm pushing back on the top cap band. I want to hold that in place. Just going to work my way up here. Now on this pin, it is going to be very full, but you're only worried about the top two rubber bands, those top two purples, so they shouldn't be too hard to grab. And now I'm going to place my thumb over this pin on the end, and I will remove the rest of these bands that I just looped. I'm going to put that out to the side. And then remember, on the one below, the pin below that we looped this petal, you're going to take those two bands on the end, that cap band, and just place them on that pin above. And now I'm going to turn my loom around with the arrows away from me. I'm just going to keep repeating the same pattern. So I'll start in this center row, and I'm doing that one dark purple, and now again on these pins in the middle, you want to make sure to push them all the way down because it's very full. So we have room to add the next one. So now I'm going to do the 3 light purple. And now the 1 dark. And now the doubled cap band. And now I need to loop those bands, so I'm turning the loom around. So again, just make sure to hold this cap band so it doesn't come off as you're looping these bands. And again, here, this is very full. You're just grabbing the top 2 and all the way up. And now again, I'm going to place my thumb on this end pin, and I'll remove the rest of these bands. I'm going to slide them all the way up to the top. And now I'm taking the cap band from the petal before and putting it right on top of that pin. And now I'm turning the loom around to do the next petal. It's going to be on the left-hand side. So hopefully by now you're getting the hang of it. I'm doing 3 of these lighter color. And now 1 dark. And the cap band that's doubled. And now I need to loop those bands, so I'm turning my loom around. I know it's a lot of back and forth with the loom, but with the way that this is set up, you have to loop every petal as soon as it's put on. Just going all the way to the top. Just make sure you're only grabbing the top rubber bands. And now I'm placing my thumb over the end pin. I'm going to pull this off and move it out to the side. And now I'm taking the cap band from the petal above, placing it right on the top, and now turn the loom around. This is going to be our last petal. It's going to be on the left hand side on the second pin up. So again, I'm starting with the dark purple. And now I have the 3 lighter purple, pinkish purple color. And now 1 more dark purple. And then the doubled cap band. And for the last time, we're going to turn the loom around to loop this last petal. Just holding that cap band in place. And now I'm placing my thumb over top of this pin and removing the rest of these rubber bands. And now the petal from the pin above, I'm taking that cap band and placing it on the top here. And then this last one that we just looped, I'm taking the cap band from that and placing that back at the start. So that's what it is going to look like. And now what I need to do is put the leaves on the stem. So you're having to turn the loom around so the arrows are facing away from you. And I'm going to go to the 4th pin up from where the stem started. So this will count as the 1st pin, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. I'm going to place the length of 2 rubber bands, starting on that pin and going up. And now on this pin I want to place a cap band, which I am going to quadruple. Again, if you feel like your bands are too tight and you're having a hard time to do that, you can just triple that band. And so now I have to turn the loom around to loop those 2 rubber bands for that leaf. So I'm pushing back on the top 4 bands, grabbing those next 2. Just go up the length of 2 rubber bands. And I'm putting my thumb on this pin. I'm pulling these off. And I'm going to put them out to the right. And now I will turn my loom around again. And from where I just put this leaf on, I'm going to go 2 more pins up. So I'm just skipping a pin. And from here I'm going to place on 2 more rubber bands going up the loom. It's going to be from my other leaf. Truthfully, you can put the leaves anywhere you want, wherever you think they will look the best. I just like to spread them out a little bit. And now on this pin I'm placing a cap band. You can see it's going to be 1 pin short from the end of the stem. And now I'm turning my loom around, and I need to loop those 2 bands that I just placed on this upper level. So I'm pushing back on the top 4, grabbing the top 2. Make sure you're not grabbing the bottom stem bands, just the leaves. And I'm going to go up 2 rubber bands, place my thumb on the top, and I'm going to pull these off, and this time I'm going to put them out to the left. And now what I can do is loop the stem band. So we already have the cap band on here on the very end, so you're just going down through and getting the bottom 2. I'm just going to go up the whole length of the stem. And now on the pins where the leaves are, it is going to be very full, and it might be a little tight to get these bottom two bands up. So just be very careful. You might want to wiggle it back and forth just a little bit to loosen that up, enough to put them on the pin above. And if you feel like they're still really tight, what you can do is take your hook and just trace around this pin to loosen it up. Just be careful, you don't want to put too much pressure on your hook. I'm just going to continue working my way up. And here's another leaf, so I'm going down through, pushing back on all of the upper bands and grabbing these lower two. Again, just be careful when you're pulling these up. You don't want these rubber bands to snap. Again, I'm going to just trace around. And now we're almost to the top here. Now this pin is going to be super full. We still have the yellow rubber bands that we have to loop. And if you recall, when we put the bands on, we did it in a clockwise direction. So as we're taking them off, we have to do it in a counterclockwise direction. So I'm starting on this center pin. I'm going down through all of these purple bands, pushing back on them so I get them behind my hook. And what I want to do is grab the top two yellow rubber bands. It might be a little tough because these pins are very full. And again, be very gentle as you're pulling these out because you don't want them to come off. Just moving them in that counterclockwise direction. And now I'm going to be going down through all of these center rubber bands. And again, I just want the bottom two rubber bands, bottom two yellow, to come out. And just move to that next pin up. You have to make sure that both bands make it on. And now we're just going to go to the next one and keep repeating that same pattern, pushing back on all of the upper bands and just getting the bottom two yellow. And this is very full, so just be careful as you're pulling them out. And now again, just the bottom two. And now this one's going to be the hardest to grab because the yellow rubber bands are wrapped around the back side of the pin. So they're going to be a little bit tougher to get a hold of. So what you're going to do is just place your hook down through the middle of the pin, push back on the upper bands, and if you see my hook, it has to come out to the side, and then grab those two yellow rubber bands from the side, and you want to get them to come out and around. Again, they are definitely tight, so just take your time. And here's the last one. I'm going down through, pushing back on the upper bands. I'm just grabbing this bottom yellow. I sort of have to do this one a little bit from the side as well. And then back to the start here. And that is it for the looping. So now I just want to take this off of the loom, and this center pin here of the flower is where all of your loose bands are going to be. So I'm going to place my thumb over top of that, and now I can remove the stem and the leaves. It's going to be tight where the leaves are connected. And now I'm going to keep my finger over this, and I'm going to remove the rest of the top part of the flower. And now what I'm going to do is put my hook down through the middle here. I'm going to make sure it's through all of the rubber bands. And now I carefully want to take this off. And now you can see that I have two green rubber bands on the front here that are loose. And what I want to do is use my hook to grab hold of these 2 green bands. I'm going to pull up on the flower so I can see the opening, and I want to pull those 2 bands through to the front. You want to try not to get other bands hooked in the way if possible. So I think I do have a green band that I need to go through here as well. And so now you should have 2 green bands on your hook, and I'm going to take my very last green band and I'm going to get it on my hook, and what I want to do is pull it through these 2 green rubber bands and get the loose end back on my hook, and I'm going to loop one through the other, the end that's closest to the end of the hook, through the other one, make a slip knot. And then here is the flower. So you might have to adjust it just a little bit if you want to try and get the stem nice and straight and get the leaves to go out. And then here's what the flower will look like. And then here is another one that I made using all blue rubber bands for the petals. And you can see what it looks like on the back side. I think it has kind of a cool look. You can see what this one looks like on the back too. So they're a little bit different looking on the front and the back. So whichever side you think looks better, you can display it on. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook, post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page, and please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on all of my latest tutorials. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram, so please feel free to subscribe to those as well. Thanks for watching.